Manga often asks us to dream of heroism, hope, and happy endings. Takopi's original sin does the opposite. It confronts us with a bleak social reality. You can't fix everything, and sometimes trying only makes things worse. But why did this short anime/manga shake so many readers and viewers? And what are its lessons in psychology and philosophy? To answer that, let's journey from Happy Planet to the most painful corners of the human mind. Takopi comes from a world where sadness does not exist. Picture that, a planet where people worry about cold custard more than cruelty. Joy is the atmosphere, and the greatest quest is to share laughter. But then Takopi's ship crash lands on Earth, and he's thrust into a universe where human wounds run deep and happiness is not a gadget you can hand out. Takopi meets Shizuka, a girl so numb from bullying and family neglect that even Takopi's magical gadgets can't make her smile. Psychologists recognize Shizuka's learned helplessness. Years of pain, abuse, or neglect teach the brain that no action can escape suffering. Shizuka moves through life as if defeat is baked into every moment. Her eyes sometimes blank, sometimes pleading for a kindness she cannot name. Arthur Schopenhauer's shadow hovers here. He would see this as proof that suffering is essential to existence, that happiness on Earth is the rare exception, not the rule. For Takopi, it's the first hint that Earth is nothing like home. However, due to Takopi's ignorance, he overlooks this. In episode 1, we see Takopi desperate for solutions, throwing gadgets after gadgets after gadgets at Shizuka's sorrow. He rewinds time to prevent disasters, gives her devices to force laughter, tries to erase bad days before they begin, but nothing sticks. We see the psychological harm of toxic positivity. The cruel implication that people should be able to snap out of misery if only they tried hard enough. But depression and trauma does not care about shortcuts. Takopi and viewers confront what philosopher Albert Camus called the absurd, the void between our craving for happiness and the world's relentless indifference. Each reset pushes Shizuka further into numbness. Takopi is forced to learn real wounds are deeper than any gadgets can reach, and sometimes offering easy answers is no answer at all. In a way, the viewers are comforted by Takopi's gadgets to be able to go back in time. As episode 2 starts, there's a uneasy change in the air. A sense that something's been building, unseen for far too long. Takopi, who once floated through this world with the buoyancy of innocence, now comes with twitchy, haunted urgency. The school, once just confusing, becomes a labyrinth pulsing with hidden threat. Every hallway hums with the threat of Marina, whose cruelty, emotional, physical, relentless, has evolved with terrifying precision. Takopi's hope shrinks with each failed intervention. The quick fixes have stopped working. His gadgets, once symbols of optimism and comfort, are now reminders of helplessness, useless in the face of real darkness. Here, the psychological tension escalates. Not just Shizuka, but Takopi himself is concerned. His worldview collapsing. The pressure on Shizuka builds to the breaking point, and Takopi watches, feeling himself complicit by inaction. It all unravels in a moment so quick, so brutal, it feels almost unreal. Marina pushes Shizuka towards the ground, Shizuka recoils, and Takopi, seized by fear and primal desperation, intervenes. The world seems too slow, hands lashing out, a slip, a cry, and then the stillness after impact. Marina lies, motionless. The color drains from the world. The soundtrack itself seems to hold its breath. This is the moment fantasy dies. A crossing from hope to horror. Takopi, panicked, grabs desperately for the time rewind gadget, punching buttons as if sheer will could rewrite the universe. But sometimes the universe simply says no. This time there's no reset. The time device cracks in his trembling hands. A symbol now not of hope, but of ultimate cosmic limits. Here, Sartre's philosophy comes roaring to life. We are our choices. For Takopi, intention, a wish to rescue, to soothe, collides with outcome, and what's left is only consequence. The world offers no mercy, no way to skip the pain. Takopi becomes, in this moment, truly human, mired in a cycle of guilt, regret, and moral ambiguity. He is no longer an outside observer or a comedic alien. He is now fully responsible, swept up in the tragic current of human suffering. There's no going back to innocence. What is much more unsettling is Shizuka's reaction. But what more would you expect from such a broken child? Death, something that is irreversible, becomes Shizuka's happiness, becomes something that uplifts her and sees Takopi as her savior. Not much later, Naoki, Shizuka's classmate, finds himself thrust into the aftermath. Confronted by horror, he is paralyzed until he gets back to the senses, where he recommends Shizuka to turn herself in. However, Shizuka didn't see the big problem and wanted to do something else, find another way. So she asked Naoki,
東君、他にはどんなのがあるの？
小説なんかだと他人に罪をなすりつけるとか。いや、それはフィクションか。よくあるのは罪を隠すとかじゃないの。定番だろ。
私友達もいないし、ママにも頼れない。他には誰もいないの。東君しかいないの。助けて。
僕ならできる。
Naoki was quite conflicted. However, at the end, he fell into his own illness, which is being codependent. The definition of codependent is characterized by excessive emotional or psychological reliance on a partner, typically one who requires support on account of an illness or addiction. Now we need to ask ourselves, why is he codependent and to who? The reason why is because he did not get the validation that he sought from his mother, so he sought it elsewhere, and the one who fed him that validation was Shizuka. He felt great not being a disappointing child who never gets anything perfect. For Naoki, hiding the truth isn't just survival, it's a desperate grasp at keeping those few fragile connections, even as each choice carves scars he can't erase. Psychologically, this is classic trauma bonding. Collective suffering forges unnatural loyalty, even as fear of exposure and moral shame gnaw away inside. He shoulders dread alone, flinching at every siren, every adult's gaze, questioning if there's any escape from what they've done. Now, due to not wanting to make this video too long, I will be skipping the scene with Naoki and his brother and going straight to Takopi and Shizuka's journey to Tokyo in their summer vacation. Now, for Shizuka, this is more than a trip. It's a quest for connection, for validation, for a family that might finally understand her. For Takopi, it's a mission to rekindle the happiness where it has long been extinguished. But hope can shatter in a single moment. Shizuka's joy, years in the making, crashes against the indifferent reality of a father who has moved on, built a new family with 2 daughters and no room left for her. When she calls him dad, he coldly denies knowing her, words slicing deeper than any bullying or neglect. There's no apology, no hesitation. She's a ghost in his new life, a memory he does not want to reconcile. For Shizuka, this rejection is a fissure opening wide, a familiar echo of abandonment wrapped in fresh wounds. Crushed by despair, Shizuka retreats beneath a bridge, a place as lonely as her heart feels. Takopi tries to comfort her, to weave hope from the fried threads of her sorrow. But the trauma claws at Shizuka's mind, twisting hope into suspicion and rage. She imagines tearing into her father, fueling a dark fantasy born not from cruelty, but from a desperate wish to find something that still belongs to her. Chappie's fate, unknown and unacknowledged, becomes a symbol of all that's been stolen, the last small love in her shattered world. Takopi, unable to untangle this web, can only watch, powerless and increasingly haunted. Shizuka misinterprets Takopi's gentle urging to return home as if he, too, is turning away. Her loneliness explodes into anger. She strikes the one figure who has stayed by her side through every nightmare. In that moment, the child who wanted the connection lashes out, punishing not only Takopi but the hope he represents. This act is not a betrayal, it's a raw cry of a soul overwhelmed by grief and fear, a child pushed to the edge of despair. And fast forward, in the final chapters, everything narrows to a single, unbearable decision. Takopi realizes that's the only way to let Shizuka and her classmates escape the shadow of tragedy is to remove himself from memory. With a final gadget, he erases all traces of himself from everyone's past. Now, there were some changes that happened. Naoki became more open with his emotions and became much more social. However, Shizuka and Marina was still in a conflict. Marina still bullied Shizuka. However, Shizuka dropped her notebook, which had a drawing of Takopi, signifying that he had a big enough impact that even in theory he removed himself from this world, he still had a big enough impact on Marina and Shizuka. Now, I did not go through Marina's situation with Takopi, which they also bonded a lot in episode 5, since I want to make a whole dedicated video for that as well. But spoilers, as this entire video has been, it ended off them still dealing with their pain of their abusive or neglected parents, but they have one another, someone they can cry with, someone they can talk to in their hardest time, the difficult times, which I would say that's a great privilege to have. And I feel bad for the ones who do not have that connection with someone. Luckily, which I have. This story closes softly, refusing easy hope. Healing is a scar, not a reset. Sometimes the only way to help is to leave an act of love that is invincible to the naked eye. Psychologically, trauma may linger beyond memory. Philosophically, true compassion honors another's rights to heal, even if it means disappearing from their story. Takopi's greatest gift was not a gadget, but a sacrifice, the wisdom to realize that sometimes letting go and bearing pain with another person might be the only correct path forward. And that is my video essay. Thank you for listening.